Welcome back to a special pre-recorded edition of ZEE Companion Insight from our studios in London with me, Chetan Pathak. We're talking about bullying today. Has just passed Anti-Bullying Week. I'm joined by the motivational speaker, Singh, who's been telling us about his story and his own experiences of bullying growing up. This ties in with recent news headlines you may have seen around the number of children who say schools are handling bullying effectively. That number has dropped. A higher proportion of youngsters reporting that all of the bullying they suffer has taken place at school. Clearly remains a problem in our schools. And actually, Jag, beyond that too, sometimes when we talk about bullying, we forget it's not just within a school setting. Of course, that's where it affects a lot of young people, but it can be workplace bullying and bullying in the home as well.
Of course it can. Of course it can. Bullying, especially at work, because bullying it's an ongoing issue as well. Many people go for promotions, many people go for jobs, and many people get put down. Some people get disencouraged for applying for certain positions, and it's not fair. It becomes like a big school playground in some workplaces where you get certain gangs that get together and pick on people. Same thing there. Okay, same like we tell to people, speak out, stay safe. Okay, if you're in an environment, if you're working somewhere and you're being isolated, mistreated, if you don't speak out about it, it grows. It grows, affects your confidence, affects your personality, the way you are. So same thing with the workplace or school, wherever you are. If you're being bullied, you need to stand up.
And we'll run some numbers on the bottom of your screen, which we did in the first half, and people can get in touch with, for example, the National Bullying Helpline. Jack, I know that you've got a book that will be coming out soon. It's called Unbreakable, and it effectively covers your life story so far and what you experienced as a child, which is what we touched on in the first half. How did things change for you? I know you then did move away as a family from Canning Town when you were younger, and things did improve. I think people will be relieved to hear that into your teenage years, but I guess the effects of those early years and the bullying that you suffered still had an impact?
Of course it did. Of course it did, yeah. I mean, because of the immense bullying that we suffered, when we left from one school and went to the other school, in a total different area, there was so many ethnic varieties there. There were Asians, there were blacks, there were Chinese, and it was like, wow, we're actually into a different world now, and we were actually accepted. We felt comfortable. But obviously we had those scars in our head that we had got from our previous school. So obviously the way I had to get through that and to make sure that I sorted the eating disorders, the personality problems, the confidence, was I started reading books. I started reading books on Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, and these people gave me the confidence that I had, that I'm really yearning for. And without them, I'm not sure what position I'd have been in today. But those people, those books had given me the motivation I needed.
You've got 2 children now. We'll put that picture on the screen of you and your wife and your kids. What have you told them about bullying? Because it's natural, as any parent is protective of their kids, but especially with what you experienced, you want to make sure that your children don't have experiences like that. Obviously, we've moved on a lot since the 1970s, but from these headlines, clearly bullying is still happening and still an issue. What sort of advice have you given to them?
Nothing complex, something simple, just for the NSPCC. Speak out, stay safe. If there's someone in school who's making you feel uncomfortable, outside school as well, like you said, anyone that makes you feel uncomfortable, belittles you, you must tell a teacher or you must tell us. Otherwise, no action will take place and it'll just get bigger and bigger. And everybody has the right to work comfortably, be happy at work. Everyone's the right to be at school and enjoy themselves, like I said before, Chetan. Nobody should feel that little bit of belittling. If you are feeling it, you need to speak out.
I know you said you moved to... Did you move to Upton Park from Canning Town? And
Park,
Upton Park was more multicultural, and you had a better time there.
Yeah.
One thing you've also spoken about is observing gang violence, for example. I mean, a lot of kids, and especially at that time, may have seen gangs going around, and indeed we know that it's happening now. In fact, London is seeing a particularly high number of murders just this year alone. The number of murders in London so far this year has now matched the total in the whole of 2017 after a series of violent deaths in the capital, including the week from October 31st when there were just 5 stab murders alone in that week. The tally of homicides have reached 118. We've seen these headlines, especially if you live in and around London, popping up in our local papers, the national media too, about gang violence in particular, children carrying knives. What sort of work have you done around that? I know you've gone into schools with NSBCC talking about bullying, but how do you think we can better handle this particular spate as a society?
Well, when I was growing up, it was like I jumped out the frying pan into the fire, because now you can't choose what area you grow up. And I was growing up in East London, a very rough gang warfare. There was a high rate of crime, robberies, drugs, and all this was happening around me and the people around me. People I knew, Chetan, were getting injured in knife crime, and their gang wanted to fight their gang, and their gang got bigger. It was like a ping pong balls between the gangs, and I decided one day that I don't want to be around these people. And that is what the youth out there need to do. And the hardest part was to stand up and say, right, I'm moving away from this. But it's just so simple. That's all the youth had to do out there. If they are in a situation where they're surrounded by knife crime, drugs, or whatever, they need to stand up and move away. And I was told by some of my people, some of the gangs around me, that, Jag, you can't. This is where you belong. No, sorry, that is not the life I wanted. I moved away, I got a mortgage, I got a family, I got a life, and I started to build on that. But unfortunately, some people feel they're trapped, that they have to stay with the gangs, they have to stay in that environment, but it isn't so.
Well, I guess that's especially the key for young people. Often they feel that this culture is so endemic around them, this carrying of knives, or like you say, being part of a gang. It becomes very difficult to separate yourself because it's so much part of your world and it's normalised. This kind of violence becomes normalised. It takes a really big step to actually pull yourself out of it. And especially as a child, I guess you need the support too. When we talk about bullying and speaking out and speaking to someone, I guess the pressures of being in a gang or observing that kind of violence, it becomes an issue of needing to communicate about that sort of stuff too.
Because, Chetan, you've hit the nail on the head. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for me to move away because I was growing up. I grew up with these people, and it's like these people around me. But I thought to myself, wait a minute, if I stay here, what am I going to be like in 10 years' time? What kind of life am I going to lead? And that is not the life I wanted to lead. I wanted to be an innocent citizen, have a job, have a family, settle down. And not only that, I wanted to go out there and inspire people and say to them, listen, bullying, anti-knife, all these things are there to make your character, especially the youth of today. They need to realise and understand and concentrate more on what they want, what kind of passions they want, what kind of education they want to achieve.
In response to the murder rates in particular in London, the Metropolitan Police Violent Crime Task Force has been specifically set up. It seized 340 knives, it says 40 guns, 258 other offensive weapons in the first 6 months of its operation alone, and made more than 1,350 arrests. But the Met Police, of course, will talk also about being stifled by budget cuts too, and how that has impacted what's happening. Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary, expected to announce enhanced stop and search powers for police within the next few weeks. That, of course, is a controversial issue too, especially around disproportionate number of Black and Asian people that end up being targeted in those stop and search campaigns. Wanted to talk about this as well before we go, Jag. It's a headline I saw at the BBC, a story about a young Bangladeshi textile worker. His name was Altab Ali, and it's a story that may be familiar to some people in and around East London at the time. This was in the late 70s. You, of course, a child in the 70s, not a million miles away from where this happened. Altab Ali was murdered. He was a 25-year-old murdered in St Mary's Park by 3 young people who admitted that it was racially motivated. But it was seen as such a seminal case because 7,000 people marched behind his coffin through central London, calling on the government to finally take action. And Jag, this sadly was not an isolated case. It was nothing new. There were people, I'm sure as a child when you were growing up, who were murdered because of the colour of their skin. This, as a case where 7,000 people marched, is regarded as when things started to change a little bit. It certainly didn't happen overnight. People in the community say it was only until the 90s that they noticed any improvement. But it was a significant moment in East London's history.
Of course it was. I mean, those 7,000 people, as I said before, they stood up. They stood up to say, listen, we're not going to accept this. And it saddens me to hear that happened. But they stood up. And they stood up, and because of those people, over the years in this country, certain laws have been made to now make sure that we do not go through what they went through, okay? And those 7,000 people, I salute them and everyone who stands up for anti-bullying, because we are all equal and we need to be treated equally, and the laws of this country have changed throughout the years to obviously reflect that, and that makes me happy. That makes me happy.
We mentioned when we came back from the break, your book is coming out soon, Unbreakable. What do you hope the impact of that is? Because there are a lot of people who live through the sort of experience you did who think, Well, it's in the past. I've parked that now. I've moved on. You've specifically spoken about it and brought it out. For what reason? What do you want people to take away from hearing your story?
Okay, so what I want to take people from, I don't want, it's not a book to get sympathy. I don't want people to sit there and feel sorry for me. The power of the book is to make people realise the power of the human spirit. If you decide inside your heart that you're not happy with the environment you're in, stand up, move on. And that is the message that book sends out there to people to say to them, if you are in this situation, you need to do what I did. I stood up. It's going to be hard. It's not always easy to stand up and walk away, but you have to be determined and reach out and get some help. There are so many amazing organisations that you've just mentioned there, Chetan, who are just sitting there waiting by the phone for people to find them up. And that's exactly the message my book sends out, is that stand up and go out there because you deserve happiness. Everyone deserves happiness.
And we're on those numbers again just before we go. The National Bullying Helpline is 0845 22 55 787. There's a text service as well. If you're a young person, you can text the Young Minds Crisis Messenger. It's 85258. If you text the initials YM, it's available 24/7. You've also got the Samaritans. It's a 24-hour helpline, 116 123. There to talk about any of your concerns, or if you're concerned about someone else. I know Jack spoke about mental health too. We give this number out often when we talk about mental health stories. It's the website mind.org.uk and the NSPCC helpline. I know, Jack, you've done work with the NSPCC. Yes. 0808 800 5000 if you're worried about a child or need advice or information about child protection. We have about 30 seconds left. Jag, I know you've repeated it many times before, but if there's someone watching, whether it's a child that's experienced bullying or whether it's an adult who's going through it, perhaps in a family environment or in a workplace environment, what would you say to them as our final words?
I'd say to them, you deserve better, okay? You deserve better and you deserve to be happy. If you're not happy in the environment you're in, okay, stand up, speak to someone and keep speaking like I did for many years. But we're lucky enough that there are certain laws that we put in place in this country today that can help you because you deserve happiness.
Jack Singh, thank you very much for sharing your story and for your time today. We are totally out of time for Insight. We're on every Monday, Tuesday at 5:30 on ZEE TV. I'll be back with you very soon. Until next time, goodbye.